Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt.
And I'm Jadrian.
And we are in the third of three podcast recordings from 16 Lots, I think, Outpost in Newport, Kentucky.
As part of the Jet Set conference. So we didn't mention this in the last one, but we should probably remind you again. We are here for Jet Set 2023, which is sponsored by the Journal of Economics Teaching. That's the Jet. Symposium on Economics Teaching. That's the set part. So we are jet setting to Northern Kentucky today.
And those who are listening, this has come out 2 weeks after the previous one where we were here, 4 weeks after the first one where we were here, and about in real time it's been about 1 hour for us.
And we are drinking half pours because we're not animals and we did not want to drink 3 beers in an hour.
Yes.
I am not drinking a half pour. I only have half left. But
this is John's first episode, so he has a full one.
John is an animal. So
let me introduce John, and then we can introduce our drinks. So we kind of do them all at once. So I have the privilege of introducing John today. John Kruggel is the director for the Center of Economics Education at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And he is also a lecturer of economics in the Department of Economics. So he both teaches and teaches teachers how to teach, which I always love to say that combination. He is teaching and teaching the teachers. John is, we're going to hopefully talk about it a little bit too, a graduate of the Delaware program. So those of you who are economic educators may know the Delaware program, but it is a very cool program hosted by the University, well, I shouldn't say hosted, awarded by the University of Delaware. He has a master's in the economics of education, or economics for educators. So they have a special economics education graduate program to, again, help teachers teach economics to teachers. So really cool program, so hopefully we get to talk about all of that. Drinks, let's go. John, tell us what you're drinking.
So I have a Hefeweizen. This is I get very nervous. I taught in southern Indiana for a couple of years, and so I always mispronounce this town. So I'm going to say it's Palmyra, named after the small town in southern Indiana. So.
Very cool.
Matt, what do you have?
I have and speaking of mispronunciations, this is going to be terrible. I'll say it's the Vltava Pilsner. It's a Czech-style Pilsner. I saw it, my choice of the drinks, my 2 5-ounce pours were IPAs. They're now out of the IPAs for me to choose from.
Yeah, it's close.
It is
you're a
Czech
neighbor.
beer, and I'm half Czech. My mom's side was all Czech, so I figured, I'll have this is my heritage.
So it is summertime, and it is a little warm outside. So I went with a New Spain Mexican lager, but we're all drinking from 16 Lots. So it's all from the same brewery. Has been, at least the 2 I've had so far, very delicious. I'm expecting number 3 to be very good too. Toasting.
Sorry, I know we cheers at the end, and I'm just drinking first.
We cheers at the beginning and the end. Cheers a lot.
I'm screwing everything up with drinking first, but it's a good beer though. Your beer's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Awesome. So excited to have you on to talk a little bit about, especially for the listeners. We have some idea, but we still don't know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
But for those who are tuning in, right, there's a wide variety. There'll be some economics educators, and then there are some people who are, business professionals in all walks of life. What does it mean that you are directing a center?
So the Centers for Econ Ed, and it's an interesting. So I'll give you kind of the 1,000-foot view of it, and then kind of zoom in on what we specifically are doing at our center. But centers, by and large, there's a national council for economic education, and so we're a part of that network. And then there are state councils, and so the centers are part of state councils. The state councils oversee the centers. And typically what happens is at the national level, they're heavily involved in developing curriculum and putting forth webinars that teachers can use. And so then the national council pushes out the curriculum to the statewide councils, and then the centers are the ones responsible for the most part, the centers are the ones responsible for actually putting together the programming to, maybe if there's a new curriculum, to introduce that new curriculum, or just in general, here's a new fun way to teach economics. And we try to bridge that gap, that barrier that sometimes teachers have when teaching economics, because we do K-12. So a lot of elementary teachers will come to it, and economics is kind of the, I actually have a presentation that I have where I call taking the boogeyman out of economics, out of teaching economics. And I present it to elementary pre-service teachers because there's a lot of discomfort, I think, with the topic, especially if you're elementary level and you don't have the content background. You see it kind of diminish a little bit at the high school level, but even then, you have a lot of high school teachers that their school just needs an econ teacher, and it's not their area of specialty. They may not have they may have had maybe one econ class if they're lucky, and so it's a way to get the content, but also the methods, and that's where the Delaware program really helps quite a bit. The methods in being more effective at teaching, and so at the center we really do focus on working with the schools, but it's working with the administration to identify what are the gaps, what are the needs that you have. Is there a program that we can offer? Is there a PD session that we can come in and do for your teachers? It's working with the teachers, of course, to make sure that what we're doing works for them, because there's a differing perspective with the administrative perspective and the teacher perspective. And then we also do stuff for students. Like at JMU, we have now 3 kind of tentpole programs that we offer each year. We have 2 that involve the FBLA, the Future Business. Very excited.
Yeah,
Very good programs.
I don't know if you picked up. There's a screaming kid in the background.
They're talking about FBLA, and kids go crazy for
like,
FBLA.
That's what we want to do. So FBLA stands for Future Business Leaders of America, if you are unfamiliar with the acronym. And so we have one where we prepare high school FBLA students to compete at the state level and regional level competitions. We give them kind of a practice session that then gets them, and we hope that we just want our students in our area to feel a little more comfortable with it and to perform better. And that's something that the administration really asked for. And so we said, sure, we'll do that. So we bring, last time we did for the high school, we had over 200 students.
Oh, fantastic.
6 different divisions. So in Virginia, this is I taught in Indiana, so there's some terminology and some kind of quirks to Virginia that I still kind of trip up on. Like I'm used to saying districts for schools, but divisions is what they say in Virginia.
Okay.
So we had about 6 divisions represented in over 200 students, and then because of the success with the high school FBLA program, they actually asked us to do one for the middle school level, and that one is more of we want middle schools to have an FBLA. And there's a bit of a mandate issue there. Again, the administration were asking for that. They could get some more funding and things like that. And so we just did a pilot for the middle school one and had some success. And so we didn't have we had about 150 students, not as many. We started smaller because we were piloting it. We aim small, miss small kind of thing. And then the other big one that we do is for elementary. So we're now trying to hit K-12 all the way across. We do one. So this started with one of the predecessor, 2 people before me started a program they call it GEMFAIR, Global Entrepreneurship Marketplace is what it stands for. And it's a classroom mini economy, which is a fairly common thing. Students create a product, they sell it to each other, they earn money through doing tasks or what have you, and then they use that money to buy products from each other. And so they do that in their own individual classrooms, but what we do is we do like a regional market where then they make a second round of those products, they bring it to JMU, and they sell it to each other. But what we do is, we started it when the European Union kind of formed as a way to introduce the idea of exchange rates. And so what we do is we take however many of their currency they had, we average it out, and then we say, well, now you have this new currency when you come to JMU that you're going to have to use to buy the products. And so we have some math lessons that we try to keep it, it's meant for 3 through 6, really, 3 through 8.
Third grade.
Third grade through 8th grade, but we predominantly get like 3rd through 5th that show up, and so we have to keep it, you can't get too complicated with an exchange rate. But we have some math lessons that they can do with it and extensions. Cool. We offer up a bunch of awards and and it's, nothing crazy, but we do they get bags of goodies and stuff, and they really enjoy it. And so we have that element where we do student-based stuff, but a lot of it is also programming for teachers on curriculum and activities they can use. So
yeah, and I mean, a wonderful service. I mean, great service because, as you mentioned, many teachers. Some kid who does not want to be in school screaming in the background. Many teachers will have had no economics, and others will have had some. But even if you've had some professional development to learn great methods, what I love about centers and what they can accomplish, and Jadrian's talk at the one at Susquehanna is if you reach 20 teachers, you could really be reaching 2,000 students in a year. If you can give them one new lesson that helps them teach better, you've helped 2,000 students learn a topic better. So what you're what it sounds like you're doing, I mean, your impact has to be tens or hundreds of thousands, I would imagine.
That's what we hope. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is interesting because we don't get too much into the numbers. We're starting to. I think data-driven kind of analysis is really coming to the forefront of a lot of centers and councils. And so, yeah, we have kind of that almost three-prong approach. But yeah, you have the multiplier effect that exists with just teachers. But then you also have what's fascinating with some of the student programs that we have. The GEM Fair that we did, I think it was 2 years ago. So one of the awards that we give is like best entrepreneur, best sales pitch, that kind of stuff. And so we had one of ours that designed, we also do a design competition for the money. And we had a person that won the award for the design for money, was actually at JMU. So she won it in like third grade. And she was an undergrad at JMU.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
so we were able to have her come and present the award to that year's winner of the design. And so to see little things like that where you had an impact and be able to talk to her about, hey, what
JMU wrote an article about this, right? Like that has to be JMU news. Like that's front page of the website.
Cool. Yes. We had a nice photo and so and we literally wrote an article. Well, before I was there, Bill Wood, who was the center director before me, and they wrote an article on using the GEM Fair to help teach economics at the elementary level. And so we think it's one that's just really great. The regional marketplace you don't see as often anymore as you used to. It's kind of faded. It's a very costly program to run, and we're fortunate that we have a lot of funding that comes from local businesses through an organization that funds us. We have a board. I should plug them, Your Economic Success. And so they're very nice, and they give us. We try to be very positive.
Your economic success.
Yes,
success.
Yes. And so they are very generous with the funding that they provide, and so we're able to do a lot of these things that maybe other centers are not able to do, and we're very fortunate with it.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Now you, Jadrian touched on the introduction, right? Your background, your degree is from Delaware, and they have a little bit of a different, or at least had. I don't know if it's still going on, but I know the program.
The master's program is still going. The PhD program is
going.
And it's a little bit of a different program.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little how that might differ from a...
Yes. So your typical master's in economics is obviously going to be very content focused, and this is like an interesting combination of, you almost have, let me back up. So the program itself is designed for teachers, and so you have a intensive in-person summer-long program. So you go for like 5 or 6 weeks, and it's all day. You're getting micro, macro, and then you're also getting content. Pedagogy beyond the content, right? So, and you learn from some of the best. Bonnie Mazzaros was one of my instructors, and so she's just in the world of curriculum development. She is a juggernaut, right? And so to learn how to develop curriculum from someone like that is just amazing. And so you get kind of the intensive, intermediate, micro, macro, and then you get fiscal policy, monetary policy. But then it's also but how do you explain these concepts to students and to teachers? And for the thesis, it's more of a project that you do where you have to illustrate that you've gone and implemented. It's an implementation plan, so you have to show how you've implemented what you have learned and what you've been using in your area. And so what I did is this is part of how I got involved with the Indiana Council, is I did a lot of workshops and programs for Indianapolis public school teachers and things of that nature, where I would implement different programs. And so it's more of the application than the theory in a lot of it. And so you almost have those two tracks happening at the same time.
Yep.
And so then during the school year, when you're teaching, you have your classes that are online, the portion that's the online part, where a lot of the content comes into play there more so than the summer.
And in the summer, you're living in dorms, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a full camp. I've a couple.
What?
Yeah.
Well, so when I was in State College, right? So some of the teachers, when they drive over, will go through. I don't know the name of the interstate, whatever the one that goes through Harrisonburg, right? Like across Pittsburgh and like
70.
Yeah, correct. Because there's not a highway that really goes.
The one that Harrisburg to Pittsburgh 76.
Yeah, so they'll go that way to go to Delaware, and so a lot of teachers have stopped by. Like they come to State College, and so like Luke Starkey is one of them. He stopped by last.
Well, Luke
summer.
Starkey's an Indiana guy too, right?
Yep.
So I've never met him, but social media kind of content.
So they put him in the dorms. They do a lot of I would say it's it's adults, right? Like I mean, it's mostly it's teachers who are going back to get this extra degree. but they try to actually make it like a campus experience. Like, you'll go to baseball games, you'll go to museums.
Yep.
Like,
we
you do
went
activities
We go
together.
to the Philly Fed.
Yeah.
We went to Brookings and Heritage Foundation. We do kind of. They used to go to New York for the stock exchange and stuff like that. So it depends on the funding that they have.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do try to. So your cohort becomes very tight. And so, like, where you just had...
Yeah, because you're staying in a dorm with...
Yes.
Yeah, you're staying in a dorm with another adult.
Yeah. Well, you could pay more and get a solo.
Yeah.
I did the roommate one year, and then I did the solo the other year.
Do you want to tell us who the roommate was?
I had a roommate.
Is there a roommate that... Is there a
he's
reason
fine.
you were solo?
No, he's fine.
Okay.
I
You may not want to be publicized to the hundreds.
yeah, I don't want to.
to.
I don't know if he's comfortable with that.
Okay.
But yeah, he's fine. I just I don't know.
Where's he from?
Florida.
Okay.
And so, so you just had Mary Claire. Well, however many weeks ago you had Mary Claire on, and so, but at the St. Louis Fed, I have 2 members of my cohort are now there. Amanda
cool.
and Alexander. They're amazing, and Andrea's amazing. Amanda's amazing, and but yeah, we went through the struggles together and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see that element as well.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah.
So you're part of your job as center director, and part of your job. What kind of teaching?
So I do
load
principals.
you have?
So I get one off for the center, but I do this. So at JMU we do macro first.
Okay.
So I'll do 2 courses or 2 classes of intro to we call it intro, but principles of macro,
Sure.
and then in the spring I'll do 2 of micro.
Wow, so a 2-2 load and the center director
Yes.
at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
That's a lot.
I'm on a 3-3 load. I only get 1 course off for the director spot. You do so much more work than what I do, like directing. Like, my director stuff is tiny. Like, I direct an undergrad program. Like, I just got to make sure they register for classes and teachers are assigned. You're putting on, like, workshops and webinars and...
Yeah, we do 8 workshops a semester. We try to do 4 elementary sort of level, 4 upper, secondary level. So we have 16 total. But I'm fortunate, again, because we're very well funded. Our board has an endowment that provides for an associate director who does a lot of the programming for the teachers.
Great.
And so it allows me to focus on the kind of the outreach with the administration. Like, I'm able to focus more on the schools in general, as well as being the bridge with the econ department, the College of Business.
You also were a high school teacher before.
Yes, over 15 years at the really K-12, because my first job, what really got me wanting to be at a center was my first teaching job. I had a professor at Purdue, Chris McGrew, who was with the Indiana Council.
Okay.
And so he got me my first job overseas teaching in China. And so I taught elementary and middle school there, and then most of my career, though, over 15 years at the high school level.
Okay.
AP Econ?
No, just on
level.
Econ. I like to think of, like, I did a pretty good job, I think, with the content, so I feel comfortable that my students could have at least done okay on an AP test, but I never, honestly, like, I don't know how to put this delicate. I'm sure we have some listeners that are very big AP people. I don't care for the AP. I don't the assessment part of it I'm not a fan of, and so I just never really pushed for it. I was interested in doing dual, but not very interested in doing AP. And so, yeah.
So I'll ask you we can make this part of our transition part. Maybe your answer is the same. I don't know. Actually, I feel like there's almost 2 things that I want to ask you. I was going to ask you your favorite concept, but maybe we can squeeze that in really quickly, shortly. If you could pick, I'm going to ask you to pick only one thing. For time considerations, pick one thing. What is the biggest difference you experience from a high school teacher to a college teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
We only pick one, so give me a 2-minute. I know how much time.
Can I say time in general?
We have like a lot of questions we have. So give me 2 minutes. What's your
time? So it's a good and bad. So the amount of classroom time that you have is far less than I realized.
in college?
In college.
Okay.
So I had them 5 days a week,
In high school,
50 minutes at least. I didn't teach block, right? And then at college, like, I started putting together my syllabus, and I realized real quick, I can't cover as much in class. They need to do more outside of class. So that's a big part of the time. But then the other part is also, I get time to, like, lesson plan and grade, where I just can sit and do it and not have to teach. And then at the end of the day, after school, do all of my grading. I can just sit and, like, that's so nice. Like, I don't know how to explain how nice it is to just be able to sit and think, what would make this lesson better? Oh, this might be cool. Let's actually, instead of just having to grind through it. Numbers are fairly similar. grading is fairly similar. I mean, it's actually not as much grading either, time consideration wise. The assessments are not as intensive. Well, I mean, they're more intensive, but there's just the 4 of them as opposed to a weekly test that you have to do. So, yeah, time I would say is the biggest difference. Good and bad.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. I don't know what I would have expected, but it wouldn't have been that much.
Content is honestly, there's a lot of overlap with the content. Sure. Once you definitely get more in depth with the content. So but the most unexpected difference was the time difference.
Yep. So you could pick high school or college, right? Doesn't matter. 2-minute answer.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Favorite topic to teach.
Okay.
So it might be different, right? Like
it's
maybe
the same. Okay. Because it's a hard one to teach, but I think it's important that students understand it, and I think it's something that affects them a lot, and it's very counterintuitive. But comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is my favorite one to teach. There's a lesson that I use. I call it Tony and Nino. It's not called that. I think it's called like who should do what. Something like that is the lesson. But the activity that I use in the lesson is a pizza shop. And Tony owns the pizza shop, and he has an absolute advantage. He can make more pizzas and more salads in an hour than the person that he's going to hire, Nino. And so it's the opposite. One of them owns it, one of them. And so they have to do the calculation. And it's the way that it's done. By the end of that very quick handout, students understand it better. And it's also one of those where you just can really stress, like, you can come back to it. That's the best part that I like.
Yep.
You introduce it, and then when you get into like trade at the end, like you can talk about, why is it that we should trade with this other country, even though we could do it better here in America. Why should we trade with, say, China or India or whoever? And the same thing with micro, right? Why, as an employer, should I hire this employee, even though maybe they're not as good at doing something, right? So,
for the listeners who need a refresh,
sorry.
So many will know that inside and out, but there will be some who comparative advantage isn't known. Comparative advantage, it's the idea that if you have 2 individuals, or you could say 2 countries, even if somebody is better at everything, one country, it will be more efficient to do one of the various tasks. And it's based on how well can you do one task versus doing that opposite task. So if you have, if you have 2 individuals, the pizza shop, for example, right? I don't know what the 2 tasks were.
It was making a pizza and making a salad, and I love it. But I also can I do it real quick? Like just. So I used to in high school. I would say I would just kind of joke about how I could, if I wanted to, I could handwrite every paper that I hand out. I even joked that I had great penmanship, which they would call me out on real quick because they could see how sloppy I was on the board. But then I told them, no. If I really wanted to, I actually do calligraphy as a side gig. And I made this whole backstory about how I have a calligraphy business. I said, but I don't have my pens with me, so I can't show you. Well, one day a kid actually, I don't know why.
He brought a calligraphy.
He had it. He didn't bring it afterwards. He had it as I was saying it. He pulled it out. He's like, well, I've got a calligraphy set. Show us. And I was like, well, now I'm lying. Clearly, you've called me out on this. So, So I used to tell the calligraphy story, and then I got called out. So.
What random kid has a calligraphy?
College student.
No. This was high school. Just a very, I think he was big into arts, and he just really, and I should have, but.
So we've asked you a lot of questions. John, you have a question for one of us, not for me. So it's good. I know what the question is.
Okay.
So the more of these that I've listened to, the more and it may have been brought up. I don't think it has. So I apologize.
It has not.
So I'm just really curious, what got you what piqued your interest in Broadway musical, or just musicals in general?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Well, so if you have not listened previously, Matt operates the Broadway Econ website.
Yes.
Has written a textbook on Broadway Econ.
Broadway,
and I won't say most, a lot of his pop culture examples have been Broadway
musicals.
Yeah.
So I took a theater appreciation class. I think there's a 2-part to this. And you talk about a well-rounded college education, and we've talked about, Jadrian, we've talked on a previous episode, the value of that. This was to satisfy the fine arts class, and it was Professor John Butts was his name. And I came out of that class liking theater. It was like, this is really cool. And some of the stuff, and he related it to, he was able to relate it to an idiot business major like me. So that was my sophomore year. And then My wife was a music and theater double major when I met her. And so we started dating summer before my junior year. Late summer before the junior year, basically. But and then for Christmas, for a present, I called her mom over Thanksgiving and said, "There's actually 2 musicals here. I know she's big into musicals. One was Annie and one was Sunset Boulevard." And I'd heard of Annie. I had no idea what this other one was. And she goes, "Look, she'd be happy to go to either. She'd really like Sunset Boulevard," which was by far the better choice. And so she came up and I saw that and I was like, "This is pretty amazing." And so that was kind of the start, and then we started going to some.
This sounds like almost like the start of a game theory game that you could squeeze in with Amanda. It's that classic, right? Like, do you go to the mall or the movie? Right? What's the one that's like you go to the football game or you go to the movie? It's the dating one, right? Like, like you should almost rewrite this game theory though of like
with me.
Be like, look, I was dating my wife and we didn't know which movie to go to, but like I've heard of Annie, but she really wanted. Like you could just recreate this whole thing.
Trust me, I did not have excitement about choosing Annie,
right,
but I was like, oh, whatever, This
but
is
you
a
know
gift.
it, right?
Yeah, I'd heard of Annie, so. But so we went to that, and it was, and so we started going to them semi-regularly, and then just started kind of getting into them, and that being we're 3 hours from New York,
Right.
so we could go to them. We took the kids to them, and I've said this before. So I have 3 kids, and I think there are. This is, a slight exaggeration, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I think, 3 things everybody in our family likes.
Yeah.
One is escape rooms.
Okay. Right.
One is going out to dinner and eating.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody loves food. And the third would be Broadway shows. I mean, I'm exaggerating that. Like trivia nights. Like sometimes we'll do a trivia night together. Little games and stuff. But one of the kids isn't a huge fan of movies. Like 2 hours in a movie theater just seems like torture. A couple of them going to sporting events doesn't seem that exciting. So this is something the whole family likes to do. So,
Awesome.
no, great question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I didn't have it. He asked me on the drive. So John and I drove up here from Blacksburg to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
John drove from Harrisonburg down to Blacksburg. So he drove 2 hours to me, and then we drove 6 hours together to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So he asked me this question on the drive, and I go, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I go, you should ask him tomorrow. So I'm glad that you were able to get it
Yeah, I
down.
wish there was a better story, but no, I never did high school shows.
No, but that's a good story.
or
That's a
anything
good story.
like
That's not a bad story.
So
That's good.
pop culture, I owe Matt a pop culture reference. So
Okay.
John, I can do 2 and then you go. I can do 1 and you go 1. I go.
So yeah, I kind of forgot about the. So if you could go
I'll go
first,
first.
that'll give me some. I'm buying some
So
time.
broad rules are basically just any pop culture.
Okay.
If you can tie it to the concept or something we talked about today,
You get a bonus.
You get bonus
a
points,
bonus
basically.
sticker.
Oh, bonus sticker. Okay,
So
I got it. Okay.
I'll give you extra stickers. So I'll give you my pop culture reference. This is the one that I use in my principles class when I teach Comparative Advantage. So I'm going to pluck it out of mine. There's an episode of King of the Hill. It is actually, I think, one of the very first scenes that I ever clipped to put on the economics media library. Like it is that old, and I've like reclipped it to make it better. Hank has invited his neighbor over to his house to have beers and barbecue with his friends, and his neighbor is Canadian, and so his friends start roasting him, and basically saying like, "What's so special about Canada? Like they don't have any good beers, and they can't win at the Olympics and stuff like that." And the Canadian neighbor is basically just like, "Why is your beer so awful?" And we invented penicillin, and like we did all these other things. I use it as this sort of like. I basically bring it up as like, why are some countries better at other countries at sports? Why are some countries better at food? So that's I show it very early as like, this is my introduction, this idea that we do, all of us talk about and recognize comparative advantage.
Yeah.
That there are businesses that are better than others, countries that are better than others. There are very, very few pop culture comparative advantage clips, which is why you're struggling to think about this. I have that one, and I have one that's tangential.
I have one. I think I actually, I could be wrong, but I think I sent it to you to put on the Econ Media Library.
And I didn't do it.
So no, it's on there.
Okay.
I think it's on. I think I saw it. So I got real into Kim's Convenience.
Yes.
And there's okay.
I don't even know what
so
this
the Canadian reference jogged my memory.
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
So it's a Canadian sitcom. It was only on for like 3, maybe 4 seasons, but it's a Korean family that owns a convenience store,
Okay.
and it's just a typical sitcom kind of situation. But so there's an episode, and I'm going to get it wrong, but there's an episode where I think, so the husband, it's a very kind of traditional style of family, not what we would see today very often, right? And that's part of part of what makes the show, right? Is kind of that dynamic. And so the husband does the driving often, right? The wife does the cooking. And there's an episode where the wife drives somewhere and the husband cooks something. And I think the wife gets into a bit of a fender bender, and the husband messes up. And so that to me is an example of you should just do what you do best, right?
Example.
And so, but I'm going to do, if I can.
Well, then I'll let you do two.
Okay.
I'll give away my second one.
This is loosely related, but I show it in class. There's the movie Outsourced, which was a TV show, but I think this is from the movie.
Okay.
Where there's the call center,
Yeah.
and the guy calls in, and he's upset because he wants to get, I think it's an American Eagle statue. And I show it a lot, so that's why. And so he gets very upset that he's calling an Indian call center about the American Eagle. And and the company is based in India, and he's very upset, or maybe Bangladesh. I think it's India. And so it's India. And so then she says, "Well, sir, I found one made in America for you. It just costs like $10 more or something, $20 more." And he's like, "I'll take the one that you guys." And
That's a fantastic
yeah.
clip. We
And
will
so
link
those
to that
two
in
are-
the
Yeah, that is
description. I'll do one, and I'll make it Broadway related since you asked the question. And I don't know that it does comparative advantage, but it does absolute advantage, and it's a song that you both might know.
Uh-oh.
This will be a weird pause.
Do you have it?
Is it that one?
That one's on the list. That wasn't the one I was going to do. That wasn't the one I was
I'll
going to
share
do.
what it
No,
was in a
I was going
second.
to say, we're all hanging out
This
here.
is actually anything you can do. I can do better
Yeah.
from Annie Get Your Gun. Right? They both basically are trying to claim they have absolute advantages, but even if one of them does, there's still a comparative advantage, and they could get gains from trade.
That's a good one.
The one that I showed Matt just a second ago that I was going to chime in for my second one was from, now I can't think of the name
Beauty
of
and
it.
the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. Thank you, Beauty and the Beast. Gaston's song of no one can do anything else like Gaston. No one is as slick as him. No one is as quick as him. He's the best fighter, wrestler, lover, and spitter. That's a big part of it. He spits. No one can spit like Gaston. So I use that in the absolute advantage part, that even if he is good at all these things, he needs LeFou to help him do some other things.
Yeah.
So it turns out actually we do have a lot of pop culture examples, and
Just had to look them up a little bit. But, well, thank you for
thank you for having
coming.
me.
Yeah, thank you for coming here today. Thank you for all the listeners for tuning in. We've recorded 3 at once, and we've neglected. I might even put this in front of the others in audio, but we now have Economics Happy Hour stickers.
Yes.
And we would be happy.
We talked about it in an old
we
episode.
talked about it in the previous. We will be happy to mail anybody an Economics Happy Hour sticker. Just leave us a 5-star review and a short comment explaining why you like the show. Screenshot, email us at, I believe it is econhappyhour@gmail.com.
I think so.
Or leave a message in the show notes asking us about it. Or just Google us and send it to either of our email addresses.
We'll get you the
and
stickers.
we will happily mail you a sticker in exchange for a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening site, I guess. Yeah,
they're not all apps.
Podcast listening apps.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn.
All of the places.
We're all
the places. But, your beer is good.
I'm
so
good.
so
Mine was delicious.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Until next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.